Okay, it's recording now.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Anya, you're our only guest. Is it Anya? Is that correct?
Yes, fine. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
you're our only guest, so we might zero in specifically on your interest here. But just by way of introduction, let's introduce ourselves. So I'm Eric Wilcox. I am the statewide director for the Nevada NASA Space Grant and EPSCoR programs. I'm a research professor at the Desert Research Institute on our Reno campus. Darlene, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I am Darlene Aranda. I am the program coordinator for the NASA Space Grant and EPSCoR programs.
And Anya, which campus are you from?
Actually, I used to be at DRI, but I'm on I'm at UNR now. I'm a professor here in the mathematics and statistics.
Okay.
But I used to be, for 2 years, I worked at DRI as a, I guess, honorary hydrologist.
Okay.
I worked in the hydrology division.
Okay.
And then I moved to campus.
Okay, very good. And there's Kevin who's joining us.
Yes.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi.
Okay, good.
Am I muted?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so now there's two. That's great. Two's a crowd. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And let me start by, I always start these meetings by going to our webpage. Let me move this out of the background here. Okay. And get the meeting back. Okay. So just to make sure that everybody who attends these meetings gets oriented, I always like to start by starting at our website. And the way I get to our website is just by going to Google and just typing Nevada NASA programs, and that first hit there on Google should be our website. And then if you go to funding opportunities and click that button at the top there, that takes you to our current funding opportunities. Today, we're going to talk about the faculty opportunities for both the pre-college and the higher ed. So these are here. And you can see each of these has a link, the higher ed link, because I know both of you are at the research campuses, so I'm guessing you might be interested in the higher ed one. And I know Kevin, we've funded before in the higher ed program. So this takes you to the landing page for this particular program.
Would you mind making it, okay, the screen that you are sharing bigger? I mean, just the website, yeah, that bigger.
Yeah, let's see. I don't know if I can make the text bigger is the thing. Anyway, the actual text doesn't matter. I'm gonna bring up the actual PDF file with the content. So we'll go over the content in detail, but I just wanted to show you what the website looks like. It has some background about the program, which we'll talk about in detail in a moment. And the key thing, the key thing is to click where it says full solicitation. And that brings up a PDF file. So if you click that button, that link that says full solicitation, that will take you to a PDF file. And I'm going to switch to show that PDF file in just a minute. And then the final detail is that we like to have these proposals submitted through our website. So the button to do that is where it says continue to submit proposal. Let's see. I'm gonna, Anya, I'm gonna mute your mic because I think we're getting a little bit of feedback from there. So there. That's where you would submit the proposal. So with that, then I'm gonna switch over to Acrobat where I have, let's see, that's the higher, yeah. So I have that. So if you click that solicitation button, it should take you to this PDF file. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. So this is the higher education curriculum development hands-on training opportunity. The applications for this program are due on March 11 by 5 p.m. We only review proposals that we receive on time and proposals that are complete. So it is important to have a complete proposal submitted to us before 5 p.m. on March 11th. The awards for this time around, the period of performance will begin August 1 and continue to April 9. The April 9th end date for these projects is rather firm because our multi-year funding from NASA ends on April 9th. So it's possible that we will not be able to extend projects beyond that. I don't know for sure. There's a possibility we may be able to grant no-cost extensions beyond that date, but I can't guarantee it at this point. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. We're really going to be looking to see our funders this year really complete their projects within that time frame. An important thing about all of our solicitations, we use this attachment feature in these PDF files. And as you go through our document, you'll see that we ask you to refer to some documents like the NVSGC Science and Technology Development Plan and the State Governor's Office of Economic Development State Plan and NASA Strategic Plan. So what we do is we attach those documents to our solicitation. So the important thing to do is to click the paperclip icon on the right. And if you just open it in your browser, you won't probably be able to see this. So it's really important to download the solicitation, open it in the Acrobat Reader, and then you can see these attachments. So you'll see those files attached here. And I'll refer back to those later. So if you continue down this document, here's the funding information. These grants offer funding up to $25,000 in federal funds. And because of a requirement that funds be matched, that's a requirement that NASA puts on these, we require up to $25,000 or at least a one-to-one institutional match. So however much of the federal money you're asking for, we are seeking to that you also pledge a one-to-one match. So that would be up to $25,000 in additional institutional match for a total award amount of $50,000, or a total project budget amount of $50,000, I should say. It says here that the funding amount is contingent upon availability of funds. We're confident, in spite of federal uncertainty, we've been promised that we're going to get our next year of funding. So we're reasonably confident that we'll be able to make the awards this year. We will be doing a peer review of the proposals and aiming to make our selections in the summertime, hopefully early summer, well in advance of that April 1 or that August 1 start date. For the space grant activities, student participation is strongly encouraged, you would indicate that student involvement in your budget. Partnership with other space grant supported projects or a collaborative activity that partners with scientists at a NASA center or engineers at a NASA center or at some NASA related business or industry. Those activities are also encouraged. And then the diversity of those individuals, particularly the student body, but really everybody who participates in our programs, is an important metric that we report to NASA. So we are seeking to fund activities that where the faculty that we fund represent a diversity of the faculty across the NVSGC system, and that we fund projects that are reaching students that represent a diversity that is representative of the student body of the NVSGC system. I should say that if you have questions about the budget, it's important to first reach out to your business office in your department or your college and talk to your sponsored project office to help you construct your budget. If you have specific questions, and I know particularly with these grants, there's some concerns about the matching funds. I encourage you to reach out to us with questions about what's an allowable expense for matching. We can, I don't necessarily know myself off the top of my head exactly what's allowable and what's not, but if you have specific questions or specific ideas, we can certainly have a conversation about whether those would meet the matching requirement and how we can help you meet that matching requirement. And then finally, if you are selected for funding, we will be asking you for not just to provide us with a report about your project, but also we'll be asking you for some imagery and some plain language sort of summaries of your activities, and that helps us. In fact, NASA asks us for that information. So we might ask for photos of participants in your project, and we'll be seeking media release for anybody whose likeness is represented in those images. So that's some of the business stuff that you might encounter if we fund you. Eligibility. All faculty at NSHE institutions are, at any NSHE institution, are eligible for these funds. And then it talks in this next section about the specific goals of the components of this particular solicitation. So this is the higher education curriculum development or hands-on training activities. And so those are broken out here because they have slightly different areas of focus. Curriculum development is to establish new or revised courses or materials for higher education that infuse NASA content or touch on topic areas that are directly related to NASA's Mission Directorate priorities. And again, so this is the first time we've referenced these paperclip files. Amongst the files that are attached here, you'll see some detailed information about NASA's priority areas. The NASA strategic plan is there. And then there's also a more sort of detailed document that talks about the different mission directorates, what their strategic goals are, also talks about the NASA centers and what some of the strategic focus areas of each NASA center are. So you can find lots of content there that talks about NASA's priority areas. And we really seek, when you write these proposals, we really want you to express as specifically as you can how your project relates to those NASA focus areas. So in fact, we will ask you to specify exactly which mission directorate your project is most closely aligned with, because that's one of the pieces of information that NASA asks us for. So we're looking for things that are more specific than just, well, you know, this is content related to space flight, and of course NASA is interested in flying in space. Like, we really want to know much more specifically than that, how your project really relates to NASA's priorities. So I suggest that you invest a little bit of time in looking into that. Also, you can always reach out to me, and I can help you figure out that in greater detail. Just to finish off on the curriculum development, projects that include development of interdisciplinary classes, utilize or implement NASA's content. Senior design courses are also relevant to this, or senior research projects are encouraged. The idea is to provide college students with an authentic experience that touches on NASA's science or engineering content. Ideally, things that, the kind of content that students wouldn't necessarily be exposed to were it not for the development of this new coursework or new curriculum. And the idea, of course, ultimately is to build STEM capabilities among the student body, ultimately working towards a STEM workforce in Nevada that is trained in these topic areas that are relevant to NASA. So that's the ultimate goal. So you should try to articulate how your project really touches on those ultimate goals. The curriculum development project should have a clear progression from the initiation of the classes or content, and how that's going to become part of the institution's permanent curriculum. And I guess it just restates here what I said before. The proposal that we'll be asking the panel to reviewing these to really assess how closely related your project is to NASA's research or technology development priority areas. So we really want you to be clear about that. The other class of project that we fund on this is the hands-on training. This is to provide students with authentic STEM hands-on training activities. So whereas the curriculum development would be more if you are developing a new course and you're just trying to assemble the materials and design a syllabus and a progression for the coursework, the hands-on training would be an actual activity where you are recruiting students and providing them this authentic hands-on training activity. Again, same thing, we want the project to relate directly to NASA's Mission Directorate Science or Technology priority areas. Let's see, for both the curriculum development and hands-on training projects, the NASA Office of STEM Engagement states that all funded projects must be directly relevant to one of the mission directives. So I already said that. So we're going to ask you specifically about that. Proposal areas of interest should address one or more of the following. I'm not going to go through all of these details, but you can read through that. And if you have questions about how your activity or your idea relates to these, feel free to reach out to us, reach out to me, and we can have a detailed discussion about it. I will note specifically that NASA runs a number of challenges that try to engage undergraduate students, particularly in design challenges or research challenges. So the hands-on training, the higher ed hands-on training program that we're funding here is really a particularly good place if you're interested in putting together a student team for one of these NASA-sponsored competitions. That's absolutely something that we would be excited to fund through this program. Here's the proposal guidelines. So the details are here. There is a cover page that is part of the attached files. Let me just double check that. Yeah, so the top item here, maybe that text is too small to see, but the top item here is the cover page. So you'll want to open that up and fill that out and attach that as the cover page to your proposal. Let's see. Results of lead PI from prior Nevada NASA Space Grant Consortia or NASA EPSCoR support. So if you are one of the faculty members who we have previously funded through one of our activities, we ask that you summarize for us what the results were from some of your recently funded Space Grant or EPSCoR projects. A CV, we need a 2-page CV for you. And then a maximum of 4 pages, which is the actual a proposal for your project. We ask that you include an abstract of 300 words or less, and then you answer these questions. So who's actually going to conduct the project? Who's responsible? Who are the participants? If you are engaging students, what is the number of students? If there are other faculty who are collaborating with you, who are those faculty? You don't necessarily need to know who the student participants are, but how many students you're going to engage and how you're going to recruit them and engage them in the project. What are the objectives, the methods? What are the anticipated outcomes of the project? And then if it's an ongoing activity, how do you plan to sustain that activity? So maybe that's simple. Maybe you're developing a course and you've already got approval from your department that it will become part of the regular curriculum and that they will approve you teaching the class. Well, great, articulate that in your proposal. If it's more of a hands-on training activity, ask us we ask that you sort of articulate if this is going to be an ongoing activity where you hope to engage students year after year in this, and we have in the past funded projects like this. How do you plan to sustain that project? And that might include ongoing funding through our program. We have funded hands-on training programs through multiple iterations, but I would encourage you to think about other sources of funding and sustainability plans that seek other sources of funds. That would make for a stronger proposal, I would think. Any partners that you are engaging, particularly if you are engaging students in some hands-on activity and you need materials or you need content that you don't have on hand that you plan to acquire from some other source, some partner, please describe who that partner is, how you're going to relate to them, get a letter of support from them saying that they understand that you've named them in your proposal and that they are agreeing to provide what it is you say they're going to provide. And then if this is some of the activities we fund are bigger activities like our robotics program, for example. We funded the Nevada Robotics Program, which is based here at DRI. They get funding from a number of different sources. It's really helpful for us and the review committee to understand how specifically these funds are going to fit into the broader funding scheme of the project. We do have to report to NASA on the specific, like how many students were impacted because of these specific funds. So if it appears like our money is just going to be pooled together with money from a bunch of other sources, that actually becomes a reporting challenge for us. And so we would be seeking to see that your proposal really makes clear how the funding we're giving you is specifically going to be used. But if it's going to be combined with other funds, that's fine. Just be clear about how our money fits into the broader plan so we can be sure we understand what we're going to be reporting to NASA at the end of the project. And we can really demonstrate that this money had impact. Provide a timeline for the project. Again, the period of performance is kind of short for these, especially since we're coming up on the end of our multi-year award for NASA Space Grant. So we're going to be encouraging you to get started right away when we give you your funds and to have a plan for completing the project in the time span allotted. Where are you going to conduct it? State how the activity will result in the enhancement of or provide training or new materials or procedures for coursework on your campus, how it's going to enrich student outcomes, very important. A lot of the people that I engage to review these proposals are STEM education outreach experts. And so these are folks who are used to, in their own proposals, having evaluation plans for their project. So they're going to specifically be looking for how you plan to evaluate the success of your project. So give some thought into how you're going to evaluate. Maybe if you're engaging students, there's some pre and post survey of those students to understand how much they understood of the subject before the project and how much they understand of the subject after you conduct the project. Some kinds of actual measurable procedures for assessing and evaluating the effectiveness of your project. And then again, specify which mission directorate your project is aligned with. Here are the same budget details. What are the details here? Foreign travel is generally not allowed unless you ask for specific approval for us. We've generally never, I don't think, had anybody travel internationally on these funds, so that would be highly unusual. So if that's part of the plan, reach out to us early so we can talk about it. Equipment may be included in the budget, but should be improved in advance. So again, a lot of the projects we fund are for faculty time, hourly student activity, materials to present to students. Presumably all that would be clearly articulated in your proposal. If there's a significant piece of equipment that you're going to buy, we ask that maybe you reach out to us before the proposal deadline so that we're aware of it and we can have a conversation about the appropriateness of that. And then there's some specific restrictions written into the law about using NASA funds to either purchase materials from certain Chinese companies or to collaborate with people from Chinese corporations or Chinese institutions. Again, that's federal restrictions that are written into the federal law. So we have to apply those restrictions to ours as well. Submission guidelines. So those materials that I asked, that I described above, we ask that you write all that, compile it together in a single PDF file, attach that cover sheet to the front of it, and upload the entire PDF file as one PDF file to that link that's on the website for the solicitation. And that link is reproduced here. Again, do so by before the deadline. There's even a specific instruction here about how we'd like you to create the file name for that PDF file, so that helps us organize the proposals when they come in. We have a bunch of programs that we're funding. They all have deadlines in March. So all through the month of March, we're going to have proposals flooding in. Darlene's the one who's going to have to receive them and organize them for me. So it's really helpful if you follow our directions here so that we can effectively and efficiently organize them and that yours doesn't end up in the wrong pile. And then again, every once in a while, somebody has technical complication trying to upload the file. So don't wait until 4:30 p.m. on the deadline day to upload your proposal. We always suggest try to submit a day early. And if you run into any technical issues with the upload, we can probably arrange to have you email your proposal to us. So if you get started a little bit early, that allows a little bit of time so that you can reach us by email and let us know. We can't accept your proposal by email after the deadline. So it still has to be submitted to us before the deadline. So it's another good reason to get it done a little bit early, just in case there's a technical hiccup. Evaluation and award criteria. Do not, this is an important point, do not assume that the people that I'm going to assemble to review your proposal have technical expertise in the specific topic area of your proposal. It will be an interdisciplinary group of people. And so your proposal should be written in clear and concise language, and it should be written in language that is understandable to anyone with a typical STEM background. It's generally faculty from NVSGC institutions that I get these reviewed by. It could be community college faculty, it could be research faculty, it could be tenured or tenure track teaching faculty at one of the universities, could be from across that cross section, could be environmental scientists, could be space scientists, could be engineers, probably anyone, it could be a STEM educator. So make sure that the language that you use in your proposal is understandable to that broad audience. Again, align your proposal with NASA's interests. Talk about, if you're engaging students, talk specifically about your plan to engage students, how you plan to recruit students from a broad cross-section that represents the diversity of the student body on your campus or within NVSGC. Tell us, again, how you anticipate, what the anticipated impact is and how you're going to measure it. And then the budget and timeline, be as specific as you can. Again, another comment here about diversity, which I've already addressed. And then the last part here is about reporting. We have fairly extensive reporting that we have to do to NASA on these projects. And so we, of course, we can't report anything to NASA if we don't get input from you. So you will probably hear from us multiple times. We do ask for, obviously, for an extensive report at the end of the project, but we will likely reach out to you before the end of your project because we have certain deadlines and certain benchmarks, times of the year when NASA asks us to input information. So some of those details are here. Some of those details you will get once we've selected your proposal. But ultimately, we'll be asking you for who participated, including student participants. We'll need actual names and contact information for students that participate in your project. Again, as I mentioned before, we'll ask you for some imagery to document your project if possible. Some plain language summaries of your project and what the outcomes were. And then any publications, presentations, or posters, conference presentations, journal articles. If you submitted a proposal to another agency or to NASA, those kinds of outcomes we'll also ask you to report on. And then at the very bottom is our contact information. So my contact information is there. Darlene's contact information is there. Marcy wasn't able to join us today, but usually she's in these meetings as well. Marcy is the director of the System Sponsored Project and EPSCoR office. She right now is our program administrator. So she's the one who's processing all of our subawards, making sure the money moves around where it's supposed to. She's in that role temporarily. We are trying to fill that role with a new hire. But for the time being, if you have questions about your budget, you can reach out to me, but I'll probably be folding Marcy into that conversation because she's the ultimate money expert when it comes to these programs. Let me just quickly, before I'm going to go to questions and answers in just a moment. I'm guessing that the two of you are probably more interested in the higher ed program, but let me just, for the purposes of completeness and the fact that we're recording this, let me briefly go through the pre-college solicitation. That's here, has the same deadline. Let me just make this bigger. This program has the same deadline, same period of performance. Same thing here, that there's pretty much the same attachments that are involved. Similar funding, these awards are for up to $25,000 in federal funding and have that one-to-one institutional match requirement. So that is the same. Student participation is encouraged. Well, that's the same language as in the other one. Same eligibility. Any NSHE faculty member is eligible to apply for these funds. The focus is a little bit different. Actually, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so I can see more of it. Here's the language on the teacher training. So this is for training teachers who plan to teach STEM. So either pre-service teachers, so those that are planning in the future to teach STEM at a K-12 environment, or in-service teachers, like those that are actually already in the classroom teaching STEM subjects in the K-12 environment. And these are for projects that infuse NASA-related content into materials that are presented to K-12 students. We're particularly interested in providing pre-college students with hands-on, authentic, I should always say, always authentic hands-on science or engineering activities. This is another opportunity where if there is an appropriate NASA challenge, a NASA engineering design or research challenge that NASA has put out, this is a good opportunity to fund the building of a team to compete if it's a competition that's open to K-12 participation. We'll also support the inclusion of STEM activities in curricula for education courses in Nevada K-12 schools. In addition, we're seeking to support training opportunities for teachers to enhance their knowledge of specific STEM topics. and to attract students to STEM disciplines. So if your project does any of those things, be sure to articulate clearly how your project meets those goals. Again, same idea about touching a diverse cross-section of student body. We're also particularly interested in funding activities that involve the inclusion of Title I schools. So we would highly encourage you to explain how your project will have contact with students in Title I schools. And then it also mentioned here is collaboration with some of our affiliates in the NSHE institution that have other sort of education outreach activities related to STEM topics. So if you're collaborating with one of these groups, the planetariums or the Science Alive or Green Box program at DRI, or the Discovery Museum, those are just examples. Be sure to describe that in your proposal. So those are teacher training activities. That would be sort of like a hands-on activity that engages teachers. You can also propose a hands-on training activity that actually touches pre-college students. So, where the prior would be to train teachers to create authentic experiences for students, the hands-on training would be for a project that you are running that directly provides an authentic hands-on training activity for a pre-college student. And you can read the details there. Some of those are similar in terms of trying to reach a diverse cross-section of students, a diverse cross-section of schools, to encourage collaboration with some of the NSHE programs that already are doing K-12 outreach. Informal education activities must include inclusion of supplemental materials regarding NASA science or engineering related content. So again, we want to fund activities that engage students in authentic STEM activities, but we will be required to articulate to NASA how that activity relates to NASA's specific interests. So you'll want to, again, just with all of our programs, articulate how your project relates to NASA's science or engineering priority areas. And then the other thing, if you're directly engaging students in a hands-on training activity, that content must relate in a meaningful way to state educational standards. So we'll be looking for you to articulate that in your proposal as well. Other than that, I think the rest of this is essentially the same. The elements of the proposal are the same. I don't see anything here that is different than what we had in this list for the other program. Again, if you have any questions about the budget, concerns about the matching, any of that, be sure to reach out to us before the deadline. We'll be happy to discuss it with you. Same limitations on the funding that I talked about with the other, same submission guidelines. The link is different if you're doing the pre-college versus the higher ed. It's two different web pages, so make sure you go to the link on the right web page. Just take a moment to make sure you're on the right page. If you're targeting higher ed, make sure that it says higher ed at the top, not pre-college. And I believe everything else is the same, and there's our contact information at the end. So with that, I will stop the sharing. Darlene, is there anything I missed that you know of?
No, I think you covered everything,
okay,
to my knowledge.
All right, thank you. Any questions? A small group, so feel free to ask away.
You know, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
So on this matching was last time we had some glitches. So the department chair said he'll match Then later on, he said he would match this last time. That's in our proposal. But when your funding coming in, he said, I only match with the TA. There's no such a TA, really no space yet. So in this way, he basically said, oh, no funding. So he'll do this again, just this department politics and so on. I don't want to go into. And so if there any way and to facilitate, this is a great thing. We do have 4 new courses with our fund. So that's attract lots of students.
Yeah. I wish I had a good answer for that. Unfortunately, the matching funds. So here's the restrictions on the matching funds. We are obligated to match up to a level. So NASA requires each state to have institutional matching funds up to a certain level, and it's several $100,000. So it's in fact it may be as much as $400,000 to $500,000. I forget exactly what the number is. With our research infrastructure programs, we are able to tap into the sponsored project match funds that the legislature provides to NSHE for research activities. Unfortunately, for these education curriculum development type projects, we can't use those state matching funds because those state matching funds are, the language in the state law for those funds is very specific about supporting research activities. And so we've examined this over, we sort of every year we reevaluate this issue because we know it's a challenge. And then we can't require matching on our scholarship and fellowship or internship money that goes to students. So unfortunately, that leaves these faculty awards as the ones where we have to insist that they come with institutional matching because there's no other source of funds that we can show NASA we're meeting our federal match requirement. So that's why it's structured that way. The only thing I can say is that we've been told that in the future, starting in 2025, they're going to reduce the required federal matching, and they're going to try to cap it at a lower level. So we're hoping that in the future that will diminish the cost match, the institutional matching requirement on these awards. I guess what I would say is, I think there is the opportunity for some in-kind matching. So to the extent that your department has an indirect cost that it's willing to waive, for example, I think that we may be able to claim that that waiving any indirect or overhead charges on the federal dollars, you may be able to claim as an institutional match other kinds of in-kind uses. So if there's some, if you can get some required equipment donated or something, excuse me, I got my phone ringing. Sorry about that. Actually, I can turn the volume down as well. That's what I can do. If there's some kind of equipment that's donated that belongs to the department that, maybe there's some way of justifying some in-kind expense as matching. And I would suggest that we have a separate discussion about those specific things, because I probably have to bring Marcy into the conversation just to have her as a second pair of eyes on that, just to make sure that it's allowable.
Okay, may I have a question related to that?
Yeah.
Because I work in the College of Science, and the College of Science sponsored projects office told me that the institutional match can be met with the PI academic contract time.
That may be true. I would say that we should probably double check that with Marcy just to make sure. We'd probably want to see. We want to see how that looks on the proposal budget before the deadline. So you're absolutely welcome to get together with your college business person, work with them on the budget sheet, and then send us a draft of that budget sheet well in advance of the deadline, and we can look at it and evaluate it and have a back and forth conversation about that.
No, it's just that if that is not allowed, then there is no point like for me to even start doing this. Okay, so I'll ask the people in the college to basically essentially mock up a budget and send to you.
Okay.
So that we are clear on this. Another thing is, so I and faculty, so the project that we want to submit with faculty from engineering, from computer science is basically development of a program on campus that is data science, that is develop curriculum in data science for graduate students. They can actually do their research. And we're working with many departments and many programs on the buy-in of that and so forth. But see, courses like this in data science, in order for them to work, they are not courses that you teach from a book. So the curriculum development for a course like this requires two things. One is decide on the topics, and the other is design all of the labs. And that's quite a bit of work. So it seems to me from the description that you provided today that the labs could be developed using the hands-on training. But the curriculum itself can be developed using this curriculum development, which is only a portion of what development of such a course means.
Right.
So is it possible to apply for two of these, for both of them?
Let's see. I believe we have in the past accepted proposals from both, and I'm just double checking. And we have there is no restriction in the language for these solicitations, so I think you could. The only thing I would say is for the hands-on training, the hands-on training really is intended to be as the project is going, it is engaging students in a hands-on activity. So if the plan is to develop materials that would be used in a future course, future laboratory course, that would probably still be a curriculum development project in that sense, because you wouldn't necessarily be engaging the students in the development of that. But if you were planning to do this in some kind of real-time activity where you were actually planning to offer a course, enroll a bunch of students in that course, and then have them doing an authentic hands-on activity that you can argue is related to NASA's interests, that would probably be a valid hands-on training project.
I was hoping to get our graduate students to develop the activities of course, with supervision and so forth.
Yeah.
So that development, it requires quite a few different components. You have to get the research projects, you have to get data sets, you have to clean the data set. I mean, then you have to write code that, say, in R and so forth. So that's quite a bit of say,
So
develop.
you would be proposing to engage graduate students in the development of the curriculum in a hands-on activity that is leading to a laboratory. That's probably allowable. I guess I would say that you would want to make sure that your project doesn't just emphasize the outcome in terms of the laboratory content that's generated, but it also explains clearly what the outcome is for those students that are participating in the hands-on training activity, right? So hands-on training grant should have outcomes where the person participating in the hands-on training activity achieves some benefit. So you want to spin it as just, well, we're going to employ these graduate students to develop some curriculum and not talk about what the benefits are for those students that develop that curriculum. You would want to actually also talk about what benefit those students are going to get out of that activity. But I think that would be valid. I mean, especially if they're interacting with NASA data sets and writing codes to be used in a laboratory to engage with NASA data, like absolutely, I would think that would be a valid hands-on training activity.
So I think I have a follow-up question to that. Are the students going to be the ones doing the hands-on, or the curricula that they are trying to create will be hands-on?
Both.
Interesting. Yeah, that does sound like a
both. These are laboratory courses, except this is not a wet lab, it's a computer lab.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've been developing the computing parts of several courses, and it's really a lot of time to take and thought and so forth. So it basically is developing computing modules that are research projects. And
I'm sorry, Anya, I don't want you to say too much. This is being recorded, so I don't want maybe somebody the idea. So sorry about that.
All right.
Yeah, no, I think it's allowable, again, just to emphasize that the students that are doing the hands-on training activity, you want to articulate how they're benefiting from it. And then the fact that it's developing content that would benefit future students down the road is also a valuable benefit. But there should be direct benefits for the students participating in the hands-on training activity during the grant period.
And my last question is this: there are also research infrastructure grants for faculty.
Yes.
Is there a restriction on applying for this together with any of the curriculum grants?
We have in the past received. The only tricky thing is that the research infrastructure awards have a restriction that you can't have an existing award from us, or if you have an existing award while you're proposing, that you have to claim that your project is ending before your I would have to look back at our record. I think certainly it's okay to apply for both. Whether we can award both, I may have to double check.
If you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, let me double check. But we've had that question for.
Because these are practical questions, basically.
Yeah.
Anya, what is your email address so we can get back with you on those?
ania@unr.edu. I'll email you, Darlene, and so you can. Okay, if I can find your email.
Oh, that sounds perfect. My emails are on the solicitation. Yes.
Okay.
I'll also put it in the chat.
Oh, yeah, I can put it in the chat. So I'm so used to Zoom. I'm sorry that I'm not thinking.
Your email address is easy, so that's shouldn't be hard.
It's just, it doesn't look like the, never mind, okay.
All right, any other questions? Oh, it's already been an hour.
No.
Okay, great. So we will we'll get back to you on those. Kevin, be sure to reach out to us if you have other questions along the way. With that, then we will end the meeting.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.